Brickmaniacs. Well, today we're taking a little closer look at Brickmania's most recent Panther, more specifically the Command Panther tank. So like we've said in the past, this is the print shop episode of Brickmania's designer studio. So I got Slam joining me to go over this model, but more specifically the artwork and print job that goes into creating everything you see here. And as you can tell by this build, that there is absolutely no shortage of printing. It's one of the largest undertakings, especially when it comes to a tank that we've ever undergone. It does have a couple of minifigures to showcase it as well. So I've got Slam joining me to talk a little bit about what went into this build. Where do you think you want to start?
Let's start with the tank.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a continuation of what we did 4 or 5 years ago now, where we did entirely sticker-wrapped tanks, which at the time was just a huge undertaking. It was really tour de force. Like, hey,
heck of a layout.
Heck of a sticker print job, cut job, lots of trial and error. But this is a continuation of that look of how far can we push Lego as a medium. We have the capability to print a lot now. Can we print a whole tank? And if we can print a whole tank, can we texture print a whole tank?
Yeah, okay.
So that's what we have here. Lots of the German armor in World War II featured Zimmerit, the anti-mine paste that was applied to the tanks and all the horizontal surfaces. So not only did we print a whole camo pattern on this tank, we printed the texture under all the horizontal or all the vertical angled surfaces.
Which is kind of a nice subtle detail when you really look up close at this thing. You're like, oh, there is actually differences in between just the style of the printed elements themselves, even though the pattern remains the same throughout the tank.
Getting the non-textured and the textured stuff to match was actually quite a bit of work.
I bet.
This is like, yeah, I spent an afternoon on that trying to get our colors exactly the same, because there's white underneath all the textured and there's not white ink underneath the non-textured. So I had to color match those so it's continuous. Tricky, but it turned out really, really great looking.
As you can
it
see,
catches a light on all those vertical surfaces, you know, and it starts to blur the line between, is this a model kit or is this Lego? And you tell them it's actual Lego brick, minds are blown, because it really does look different and looks spectacular. There's a few different kinds of Zimmerit that was used in World War II. This one is just there's squares, they're textured squares. There's other Zimmerit patterns that are combed.
Sure.
And if we do it again, I hope we do it again.
Yeah.
It'll probably have the combed pattern, because that should look fantastic also.
Nice little lineup too if you have them next to each other.
Yeah, showing some of the variations. But so yeah, the whole thing is camouflaged. Almost every visible surface. We didn't print the sides of a lot of the plates and tiles because that would have been really onerous.
Incurred cost too.
Right.
This is already a very premium build.
But you know, visibly it's like 95% of the tank looks like it's printed. And also, unfortunately, the wheels are a non-printable surface. It's a different material that Lego's using.
Right.
I don't know if it's like a nylon or something, but our ink doesn't stick. So those are just off the table on this one. But so yeah, this is a really fun project to lay out, because you'll notice that most of the camouflage continues from one surface to the other. Like, it's very continuous. It's very much like building a puzzle in reverse.
Right.
And my process for that was actually to map out all the surfaces into what ends up being a papercraft model.
Okay.
I could actually cut it apart and fold it and form the shell of a tank in paper, which was just a really fun afternoon. And totally unnecessary, but like, it's a great way to...
Helps you visually see how everything integrates together, right?
As you start laying paint strokes across, you can see how it's going to line up, and as you fold things over, like, you know, I might paint this from this side to this side, but then there's another surface here. Like, so all those swatches need to continue from one surface to the next.
How do you make it look like a little army of minifigs came together and painted up this model to make it look realistic like that? Right.
And it's, yeah, everything's still slapdash, lots of variation in stroke widths, blur widths. Yeah.
As we'd see showcased in real life. So I'm assuming that, you know, like you were saying, the more difficult part of this model was being able to, first of all, have the pieces cohesively work together. I would assume that what you did is you started with the base camo and then went on and added the extra details, like the hatch details and the vents and stuff on the back, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and there's honestly, there's not that many details that were added into it. Like there's the side of the mantlet where I added some of the shaping that would be on the actual tank. Yeah, the vent details are there. There's a hatch handle back here. The tops of the toolboxes in the back of the tank.
Right.
And then of course the crosses on the side. And those are all after the fact that they lay on top and the art layers and stuff like that. And I also like, you know, even the machine gun mantlet has got some texture on it. And I'm like, in real life, it's, you know, concentric armor plates inside of each other with a rectangular opening. So I printed that rectangular opening too. And I think that works out really, really well.
Yeah, it reads well, absolutely.
Reads well. Just giving that hint. And again, being a showcase of our printing abilities, we also 360 printed this barrel here too. Like, put that in and spun it.
Now, I would assume that with an undertaking like this, it didn't just work out right away the first time you guys started getting this start to piece together. Talk to me a little bit about like the process, some of the troubleshooting. How long did it take kind of the original prototype model to work the way you wanted it to?
It's a week-long effort, week and a half. With this one, Dan gave me like the prototype build like pretty early on, so I could get it in there and start working with like what the camo is going to look like on top of the tank. And as small things change towards the end, you know, like go back and you change things up. But yeah, this was probably over the course of a week, maybe a week and a half. And again, there's a lot of trial and error. Like you just try some texture, how much texture is appropriate, like back it off, increase it, like, and then the color matching again was tricky too.
Did you start with the stuff that didn't have texture printing, or was it more so like you started with those base white layers on the texture and then tried to match the top to what you had achieved in the texture printed part?
I think textures went down first.
Okay.
Because I knew I had to have that in place. So I spent a while working up a texture pattern that I could repeat and keep changing up so it didn't look like a pattern, you know, because it was all hand applied. And then overall, the shapes of the camo continued to change over time as things moved around and whatnot. So the camo was actually, you know, aside from the details like the handles and whatnot, the camo was on the top layer and came in. That just continued to work over the course of the week.
Just kind of some continued refinements until you got those colors to match the way you wanted them to. And then I'd assume from there, it's fairly smooth sailing. Once you got everything matched, it just needs to come out that way on the printer.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which leads to, okay, I've got all this art designed. Now I need to hand it to, I'm not the only one printing here. We have a team of 6 over in that room printing. And so they need to know what their jobs look like and what a plate and how many they can print at once. And also we have to plan ahead for how do we give this to the customer. And on this one, we printed on plates, not base plates, but small 16 by 32 plates or something like that. And they had a whole series of tiles. So customers could look at the tiles and they more or less lined up to, like, say, the top of the tank, and hopefully they could just
copy pasta.
Copy pasta, right. Not leading people to going, is this the part I want right here? So hopefully it led to like a really great build experience for people.
Sure. Yeah, because that would be the other difficult part of it. If you just showed up with a bag of printed parts for this, you'd probably build this and then have to sit there and constantly articulate various parts to make sure the camo pattern was actually cohesive.
Correct. And for some people, I'm sure they would enjoy that.
Others would be like,
right. You've pushed me too far in my Lego hobby. Yes. So hopefully that was a good experience for people. But we ended up with 3 of those plates with all the texture parts laid out on them. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm really proud of this tank.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a heck of an undertaking. And like you said, you know, you go back to the PVC sticker era that we did with some of those previous, those I believe are Panzer 3s, 4s? From the Africa Corps, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while.
And there was the looks. I think we did looks too.
Yeah, I remember there was a Stug involved in that for sure, but that was a cool little series back in the day. And I mean, it was innovation for Brickmania even back at that time. It was definitely a heck of an undertaking. This, clearly next level, and a lot less work for the Brickmaniac involved, because you don't have to obviously sticker it all up after you put it all together. You just have the ability to bring it together and see it, you know, come to life, so to speak.
Some of us enjoy putting on stickers.
You're in the minority.
I am, yes.
for sure.
Pro tip, use a brick separator.
Yeah, it's definitely the way to go. or some tweezers, something to get it to lay on just the way you want it to, and able to readjust it before you push it down too hard. Yeah, let's talk some minifigs.
Yeah,
I
so
got
we've got our commander that came with it. Here he comes around. Get on your...
Here we go. Set it up for, there we go.
So, this,
Yeah, the commander, like you were saying, is the one that comes with it. The one next to it is the crewman that was available as an optional add-on, or now as a standalone minifig.
these both feature artwork by Lennon, and he's got the splinter camo smock, he's got the white pants. One of the small details on his belt, he's got a little signal lamp, and you can see there's 3 switches that bring up different color lenses. I love that. Nice little detail.
Gotta love that.
Yep, he's got his map case and his binoculars, and he's got a sidearm on his back. But solid little piece of art. I don't think it's anything too new, but because we've obviously done a lot of German Armor Corps guys before.
And this is definitely late war, obviously, given the story. If you've watched the previous episode where we reviewed this model, we talked a little bit more about the Spearhead novel and everything that was included in this dynamic duo, so to speak, of this, and then also the T-26.
And this tank came with the ability, you could buy an extra figure.
Right,
correct?
exactly. And now they're just available standalone, so
Okay.
it was kind of a pre-exclusive initially.
Yeah, both figs featuring 3D printed headgear that are printed. Yeah, outstanding pair of guys for your tank.
And they definitely look like they match not only each other, but just going with this tank as well. Which people love to see, the displays, obviously. When everything looks nice next to each other, that's what makes your collection something to be proud of.
I had this question.
Close the
before,
hatch.
Like, why did I print the inside of the hatch? Oh, in real life, this hatch is supposed to swivel. So if you're going to close it up, take it off, pop it back on.
You'd actually flip it around. Okay, interesting.
So I think it does one of these, swings out. Cool. Such a great little model. Gun cleaner on the side. That's a multi-part print, and our camouflage stripes line up nicely. One of the most difficult things to print on this whole thing, boxes. These boxes on the back are...
Interesting.
It's a 1, 2, 3, 4-sided print, and everything lines up perfectly. There's texture on some of those, but not all of them. So that's quite a bit of work to get just these little guys in the back. So I hope you appreciate our efforts, everybody.
Sometimes it's those smaller details that you might not notice that actually had the most development and difficulty in actually achieving to get them to look right, isn't it?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Last small thing that I'm really proud of, like this little tiny round texture indent on the side of the mantlet here. That's where the machine gun would go in a normal tank, but as commander's tank, there's a radio built in behind it, so they welded it over. Yeah, just nice little detail.
This gun mantlet in general looks like it would have been quite an undertaking with the printing not only on the front but on the sides there as well. That's a lot of cross element to deal with.
That's a 4-sided print also. I need to say, but there's 1, 2, 3. You can flatten those out and print them at once.
Nice, okay.
Yeah. There you go. It's all of our secrets. How do they do it?
Gotta love a little look behind the scenes, especially for something as comprehensive as this tank. I mean, it's something that visually, you know, obviously if you haven't built it, you can still just see by the showcase, but there's quite a bit of artwork that went into it. And I know that we talked a lot about it in the initial episodes and then even in the sit reps about just how much coordination with the print team it took to be able to make this look the way it does. But now you get a little bit of a look behind the scenes from Slam, just to hear a little bit more about how this project got up off the ground, so to speak, and really created what would probably be considered the current highlight of the Brickmania German armor collection, just because of everything that not only went to the updated, more accurate scaling and design, the 3D printed accessories, but then obviously the UV printing like we discuss here on the Print Shop episode. So thank you, Slam, very much for talking over this with me.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here. This is absolutely favorite kit of 2022.
Oh, nice. There you go.
There we go.
You heard it from the man himself.
Are they still available?
Yes, there are a couple still online. I don't know how many more production runs it'll get, so if you're seeing this video with enough time to swing online and pick one up, make sure you do so, because it'll definitely take a spot of honor in your collection. Otherwise, if you're seeing this well after the fact, just wait for the next awesome thing to be rolling out the line, because obviously all of this is just a means to an end in learning and what we can and can't do when it comes to our printing capabilities. So as always, thank you again for joining me, Slam, and thank you very much for watching.